My mom remarried. A rich guy replaced me with his kids and slowly erased me from her perfect new family. The day I turned 18, I took my inheritance, silently moved out, and refused to take her back when everything fell apart. I'm 21 male now, but this story starts when I was 15. That is when my mom Patricia met Richard, her knight in shining armor, who was going to rescue her from the tragedy of being a single mom. Spoiler alert. The only thing she needed rescuing from was being my parent. My dad died when I was 8, heart attack at 42, completely unexpected. One day he was teaching me to ride a bike. 3 months later, I was wearing an uncomfortable suit at his funeral, while relatives I barely knew patted my head and said meaningless things about heaven and better places. For the next 7 years, it was just me and Mom. We lived in Dad's house, a modest 3-bedroom in the suburbs that was paid off thanks to his life insurance. Mom worked as an administrative assistant at a medical supply company. Steady income, but nothing fancy. We were not rich, but we were stable. We had routines. Movie nights on Fridays, breakfast for dinner on Wednesdays, annual camping trips every summer to the state park Dad loved. She would tell me stories about Dad, keep his memory alive. We would go through photo albums together, and she would point out little details I had forgotten. See that goofy hat, he wore that thing everywhere until I finally threw it away. We were a team, the two of us against the world. Then Richard happened. They met at some work conference. Richard owned a pharmaceutical distribution company, made serious money, drove a luxury car, lived in one of those neighborhoods where the HOA fines you for leaving your trash cans out too long. Everything about him screamed upgrade from our middle-class existence. Mom started acting differently almost immediately. New clothes, new hairstyle, suddenly interested in wine tastings and country clubs. She would come home from dates talking about Richard's vacation home in Colorado, his boat, his connections, like she had discovered some secret level of life she did not know existed. At first she tried including me, invited me to dinners with Richard, suggested we do activities together. Richard would show up in his expensive car, shake my hand with that firm businessman grip, and ask generic questions about school. How are your grades? Playing any sports? The kind of questions adults ask when they are obligated to show interest, but do not actually care about the answers. I could tell Richard saw me as part of a package deal he was not thrilled about. His eyes would glaze over when I talked, and he would check his phone constantly during our forced family dinners. But he was polite enough, and Mom seemed happy, so I tried to be cool about it. 6 months into their relationship, Mom started talking about marriage, not asking my opinion, just casually mentioning it, like she was describing the weather. Richard thinks we should get married next spring. Richard wants to buy a bigger house. Richard says we should join the country club. Everything was, Richard says. Richard thinks Richard wants. Like she had outsourced all her decision to this guy she had known for half a year. The engagement came 3 months later. Richard proposed at some fancy restaurant, gave her a ring that probably cost more than our car. Mom called me from the parking lot, voice all high and excited, asking if I was happy for her. What was I supposed to say? Know that I thought she was rushing into things that I missed, the mom who wore sweatpants and made pancakes on Sunday mornings, instead of this new version who wore designer clothes and talked about investment portfolios. I said congratulations. She thanked me and said we would talk more when she got home, but she was already mentally checked out of the conversation. I could hear Richard in the background suggesting they go celebrate. That was when things started changing fast. Real fast. Richard had 2 kids from his first marriage. Sophia, 13 female, and Brandon, 10 male. They lived with their mom most of the time, visited Richard every other weekend and holidays. I had met them once briefly at one of those forced family dinners. Sophia spent the entire meal on her phone. Brandon talked non-stop about video games, and Richard kept telling them to use better table manners. After the engagement, Mom started talking about blending our families, how we would all be siblings soon, how great it would be to have a bigger family, how Richard's kids were so excited to have me as a brother. That was a lie. Sophia and Brandon were not excited. They were barely aware I existed. The wedding happened that spring, small ceremony at the country club. Mostly Richard's business associates and country club friends. A few of Mom's co-workers showed up, but most of our old family friends were not invited. Richard wants to keep it intimate, Mom explained, which apparently meant intimate with people who owned boats and vacation homes, not intimate with people who had known us for years. I wore a suit, Mum picked out stood there during the ceremony, smiled for photos. In every picture I am on the edge of the frame, while Richard's kids are front and center. One photo shows Mum and Richard with Sophia and Brandon between them, looking like a magazine ad for blended families. I am cropped out of that one entirely. After the wedding, we moved into Richard's house. The place was massive, like something from a home improvement show. 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, finished basement backyard with a pool. Richard's neighborhood had a gate with a security guard who checked IDs. Mom made it sound exciting. You will have your own room with your own bathroom. Is that not great? My new room was at the end of the upstairs hallway, basically, as far from the master bedroom as physically possible, while still being in the same house. It was bigger than my old room. Yeah, but it felt sterile. Beige walls, generic furniture, nothing personal like a hotel room. Sophia got the room next to the master bedroom. Brandon's room was across the hall from hers. Both their rooms were already decorated with their stuff posters and trophies and personal touches that made it clear this was their space. Mine looked like nobody lived there. We can decorate however you want, Mom said. But her tone suggested we do it later, and later never came. The summer before sophomore year was when I started noticing the pattern. Richard's kids came over every weekend, and suddenly the house revolved around them. Their activities, their schedules, their preferences for everything from dinner to TV shows to what temperature to keep the pool. I would suggest watching a movie, but Sophia wanted to watch her show. I would want to swim, but Brandon needed the pool for his friends. Everything became about accommodating Richard's kids, while I was expected to just adapt. Mom started spending all her time with Sophia, shopping trips, spa days, mother-daughter lunches at the country club. Things we used to do together became their thing. When I mentioned feeling left out, Mom said I should be happy she was bonding with her new stepdaughter. This is what blended families do. Jake, we make everyone feel included. Except I did not feel included. I felt replaced. Sophomore year started, and the differences became more obvious. Richard's kids went to Westfield Academy, this private school that cost more per year than most people make. I stayed at Lincoln High, my public school. When I asked about switching schools so we would all be together, Richard said. Westfield's tuition was already stretched with 2 kids, but we could definitely look into it for junior year. Mom added quickly. We never looked into it. Richard's kids got new designer backpacks, latest smartphones, laptops for homework. I got told my 3-year-old laptop was perfectly fine, and I should be grateful for what I had. When I pointed out the double standard, Mom said Richard's kids were used to a certain lifestyle, and it would be cruel to change that. What about my lifestyle, I asked. You are adaptable, she said. Translation, you are less important. Family dinners became torture. Richard would ask Sophia about her dance classes, Brandon about his soccer games, both kids about their private school friends and activities. Then he would glance at me and ask, "How is school?" in that tone that meant he was checking a box before moving on to topics he actually cared about. Mom would jump in occasionally with Jake made honor roll or Jake had a great game last week. But it always felt forced, like she was reading from a script about how to include the kid from her first marriage. The worst part was watching Mom transform into someone I did not recognize. She joined Richard's country club, started playing tennis, went to charity events where tickets cost more than our old monthly grocery budget, stopped cooking the meals Dad taught her, and started ordering from expensive restaurants or having a meal service deliver prepared food. Our old traditions disappeared. No more movie nights because Richard did not like wasting time on films. No more breakfast for dinner because Richard said it was unsophisticated. No more camping trips because Richard's idea of roughing it was a 4-star hotel without a spa. I tried talking to Mum about it, told her I missed our old life, missed spending time together, missed feeling like I mattered. She got defensive. I am building a new life, Jake. This is good for all of us. Richard provides stability and opportunities we never had before. You need to be more grateful and less selfish. Selfish because missing my mom made me selfish. Junior year, things got worse. Richard decided the house needed renovations. They remodeled the kitchen, upgraded the master bedroom, added a home gym. Brandon wanted a game room in the basement, so they finished it with new furniture, a huge TV, every gaming console imaginable. My room got nothing. When I mentioned maybe updating it too, Richard said we would get to it eventually. We never did. That Christmas, I watched Sophia open presents worth thousands, new laptop designer clothes, jewelry, a freaking iPad just for fun. Brandon got a new gaming computer, expensive headphones collector's edition, games sports equipment. I got a $100 gift card to Target and some generic clothes. When I opened the gift card, Mum said, "Practical gifts are sometimes the best," with way too much enthusiasm. Sophia and Brandon ripped through their presents and immediately disappeared to their rooms. I sat there holding a Target gift card while Mom and Richard cleaned up wrapping paper like this was totally normal. Later that night, I found Mom in the kitchen and asked her if she noticed the difference in gifts. She got this tight expression and said Richard's ex-wife had different financial expectations for her kids, and we needed to respect that. "But what about my expectations?" I asked. "You are almost an adult, Jake. Material things should not matter so much." Apparently material things only mattered if you were Richard's biological kid. I started spending more time out of the house, stayed late at school for clubs, went to friends' houses, picked up a part-time job at a local hardware store. Anything to avoid going home to that massive house where I was just an inconvenient reminder of Mom's first life. My best friend Kevin noticed something was wrong. We had been tight since middle school, and he could read me better than anyone. After I bailed on plans for the third weekend in a row because family stuff, he cornered me at lunch. "Dude, what is going on? You have been weird all year." I told him everything. The blended family disaster, the way Mom had completely checked out of being my parent. How I felt like a ghost in my own house. Kevin just listened, then said something that stuck with me. "Man, your mom chose her new family over you. That sucks, but at least you know where you stand. Stop waiting for her to remember you exist, and start planning your exit." He was right. I was still operating like Mom would eventually snap out of it and remember she had a son, but she was not going to. She had made her choice. That was when I started planning for my 18th birthday. I had Dad's life insurance money sitting in a trust fund, $200,000, that I would inherit when I turned 18. Mom was the trustee until then, but she could not touch it beyond approved education expenses. That money was my ticket out. I started researching apartments, part-time job options, how to open bank accounts without parental permission. Once I was 18, made spreadsheets calculating costs, saving every penny from my hardware store job. Kevin's older brother had moved out at 18, so I picked his brain about logistics. Meanwhile, home life continued its steady decline. Mom barely talked to me, unless Richard was around, and she needed to maintain the appearance of being a good mother. She would ask surface-level questions about school, nod at my answers without really listening, then go back to planning Sophia's Sweet 16 party or Brandon's birthday trip to Disneyland. Speaking of Brandon's birthday, that was another slap. Richard rented out a section of Disneyland for Brandon's 11th birthday, hired photographers, bought everyone matching shirts, spent probably $10,000 on a party for a kid who would forget about it in 3 months. My 16th birthday, Mom made a cake. Richard gave me a $50 bill, and they had to cut the celebration short because Sophia had dance practice. Senior year started, and I was counting down days until my 18th birthday in March. I had already been accepted to a state university 3 hours away with a partial academic achievement program. Between the program, my inheritance, and working, I could afford it without depending on Mom or Richard. When I mentioned the university to Mom, she seemed surprised I had applied without telling her. "We should have discussed this as a family," she said. "Since when are we a family?" I asked. She did not have an answer for that. Richard's only comment was asking if I had considered community college to save money. Funny how money was tight when it came to my education, but unlimited for his kids' private school and activities. I said nothing and kept planning my exit. Applied for on-campus housing, got accepted, filled out financial paperwork, contacted the trust fund administrator about accessing my inheritance. Everything was falling into place. February. A month before my 18th birthday was when Mom and Richard made their final devastating move. They called a family meeting one Sunday afternoon. Everyone had to be there, which should have been my first warning. We gathered in the formal living room, the one we never used except when Richard wanted to prove how successful he was. Richard cleared his throat and announced they had exciting news. "We are adopting Sophia and Brandon," he said, making it official. "One big happy family." Mom beamed. "Is that not wonderful? We will all share the same last name. The paperwork is almost done." Sophia and Brandon looked thrilled. They would be getting all the legal and financial benefits of being Richard's kids, with none of the complications from his divorce. "What about me?" I asked. Richard and Mom exchanged a look. "What about you?" Richard said carefully. "Am I part of this adoption thing, Jake?" "You are already Patricia's son." Richard said, "That is different, so I am not being adopted. It is complicated." Mom jumped in. "You have your father's name. Richard adopting you would mean changing that. We thought you would want to keep your dad's name." They had not asked, had not discussed it, just decided I would want to keep being separate from their new perfect family unit. "We can talk about it if you really want," Mom added, but her tone made it clear she hoped I would not push it. I did not, because by then I understood completely. They were building their new family, and I was not part of the blueprint. Sophia and Brandon were Richard's kids, adopted or not. I was just the son from Mom's first marriage, who would age out soon enough. The adoption went through in early March. Richard threw a party at the country club to celebrate. Sophia and Brandon got new monogrammed gifts with their new last name. There was a cake with "Welcome to the family" written on it, speeches about new beginnings and fresh starts. I stood in the corner eating shrimp cocktail and counting down days until my birthday. My 18th birthday fell on a Thursday. I woke up that morning with an incredible sense of freedom. Today was the day I stopped being legally tied to Mom and Richard's household. I got ready for school like normal. Mom had left a card on the kitchen counter with $100 inside and a note saying they would celebrate this weekend. Yeah, right. Sophia had a dance competition Saturday, which meant my birthday dinner would be at whatever restaurant was near her event, squeezed between her rehearsal and performance. Instead of going to school, I drove to the bank, walked in with my birth certificate, driver's license, and trust fund documentation, spent 2 hours transferring $200,000 from the trust to a new account only I controlled. The bank manager, this older woman named Helen, processed everything efficiently. When she handed me the paperwork confirming the transfer, she smiled. "Big day," she said. "The biggest next stop apartment complex near campus." I had already been approved pending deposit. Handed them a certified check for first month last month and security deposit. Picked up my keys. The apartment was small, 1 bedroom, but it was mine. I spent the rest of the day moving. I did not have much. Mom had sold or donated most of our old furniture when we moved to Richard's house. Most of my stuff fit in my car, clothes, laptop, some books, a box of photos from Dad. That was it. 3 years in Richard's house, and I was leaving with less than I had arrived with. By 6 p.m., I was sitting in my new empty apartment, eating pizza on the floor. Kevin had helped me move the last load and brought dinner. "You actually did it," he said. "Yeah, your mom is going to freak probably." We ate pizza and made plans to hit up garage sales for cheap furniture. Kevin's family had spare stuff in their basement they said I could have. This was really happening. I texted Mom around 8 p.m. "Moved out. I am good. Do not worry about me." Her response came 5 minutes later. "What do you mean, moved out? Where you got my own place? I am 18 now. Time to start my life." Then my phone started blowing up. Calls, texts, increasingly frantic messages. I ignored all of them. Eventually, I just turned off my phone. The next morning, I woke up to 47 missed calls and probably 100 text messages, most from Mom, some from Richard. I scrolled through them while eating cereal on my new Toomey couch Kevin's family had given me. The messages followed a predictable pattern. First confusion, then anger, then attempts at guilt, then threats, then back to guilt. Richard's messages were mostly about being disrespectful and ungrateful. Mom's were about how worried she was and how I needed to come home immediately. Home right, like that house had been home. I sent one reply to Mom. "I am an adult. I have my own place. I am fine. I will talk to you when I am ready." Then I blocked both their numbers. Clean break. I focused on getting ready for university in the fall. Got a full-time job at the hardware store. Bought furniture. Set up my apartment. It was incredible being in my own space where nobody treated me like an afterthought. Kevin's family basically adopted me. His mom would invite me for dinner twice a week. His dad helped me buy a better used car. His younger sister thought it was cool I had my own apartment and started asking me for advice about dealing with their parents. This was what family was supposed to feel like, people who actually cared whether you existed. About 2 weeks after I moved out, my Uncle Greg called. Mom's older brother, the only family member from her side I still talk to. He was the one who had checked in on me regularly after Dad died, who had called Richard out at the wedding for being pretentious, who had told Mom she was making a mistake prioritizing her new family. "Your mom is losing her mind. He said she has called me 6 times asking if I know where you are. I am not hiding. I just moved out. I know. I told her you are an adult and allowed to make your own choices. She is not handling it well. She spent 3 years not handling being my mom. She will survive." Greg was quiet for a moment. "For what it is worth, I am proud of you. Most kids would have stuck around hoping things would get better. You are smart to cut your losses." That conversation made me realize something important. I did not hate Mom. I was just done waiting for her to remember I existed. 3 weeks went by. I had settled into a routine work apartment hanging with Kevin preparing for university. Life was good, better than good. Actually, I was not walking on eggshells, was not being compared to Richard's kids, was not feeling like a burden. Then Uncle Greg called again. "You need to hear something." He said I was at your mom's house for dinner last night. Things are falling apart over there. Apparently the adoption of Sophia and Brandon had created financial issues. Richard's ex-wife was threatening to sue for more child support since he had formally adopted them. Some complicated legal thing about adoption affecting existing custody and support arrangements. Richard was facing a potential $3,000 monthly increase in child support payments. His business was solid, but that was a significant hit to their household budget. Plus, Sophia was expecting a car for her 16th birthday in 2 months, and Brandon wanted to go to this elite soccer camp that cost $8,000 for the summer. "They are stressed," Uncle Greg said, "and apparently they are realizing how much you contributed financially." "What do you mean? Your mom mentioned they had been planning to use your trust fund for the house renovations. Something about it being family money since you lived there. When you moved out and took that money, it threw off their whole budget. I sat there processing this. Mom had been planning to raid my inheritance money. Dad left specifically for me." "There is more." Uncle Greg continued. "Your room has been converted to a home office. They painted over everything, put in a desk and filing cabinets. When I asked where your stuff was, your mom said you had taken what you wanted and they donated the rest. The rest meaning childhood photos, Dad's things. I had kept personal stuff I had left behind thinking I would get it eventually, all donated or thrown out. I am sorry, kid. It is fine. I am good." And I was angry. Yeah, but also weirdly relieved. They had made it crystal clear I was never coming back to that house. No more questions about whether I had made the right choice. April rolled around. I was still blocked on Mom and Richard's phones, living my life peacefully, when I got an email from Mom to my school account. She had figured out how to reach me. The email was long paragraphs about how hurt she was that I had left without discussion, how I was being immature and selfish, how family did not just abandon each other. She wanted to meet for coffee to work things out. I wrote back one sentence. "You abandoned me 3 years ago. I just made it official." Her response came within minutes, pages of justification about how she had been trying to blend the family, how I never made an effort with Richard's kids, how I had always been difficult about changes. According to her version of events, I was the problem child who had refused to adapt. I did not respond. No point arguing with someone who had rewritten history to make themselves the victim. May brought my high school graduation. I had invited Uncle Greg and Kevin's family. Did not tell Mum about it. She found out anyway through social media when Kevin's mom posted photos of us at dinner afterward. Mom showed up at my apartment the next day, banged on the door for 10 minutes before I finally opened it. She looked terrible. Hair was not done, makeup barely there, wearing yoga pants and an old sweatshirt. Nothing like the polished country club wife she had become. "You graduated without telling me," she said immediately. "You did not seem interested in my life anymore. How can you say that I am your mother, are you?" Because mothers usually notice when their kids exist. She tried pushing past me into the apartment. I blocked the door. "Jake, please, can we just talk?" "No. I made mistakes. I know that now, but I'm trying to fix things. Richard and I are going through a rough patch, and I realized I have been neglecting you." There it was. Things were falling apart with Richard, so suddenly she remembered she had a son. "I do not care," I said. "Do not care. I am your mother. I raised you. Dad raised me. You just lived in the same house. That was cruel, but it was also true. After Dad died, Mom did the minimum, Made sure I was fed and had clothes, but the actual parenting had stopped years ago. Her face crumpled. I loved your father. I did my best after he died. Your best was not enough. And then you met Richard and stopped trying altogether. That is not fair. I was trying to build a new life for both of us. You built a new life for yourself. I was not part of the plan. She started crying. I need you to come home just for a while. Richard and I are having problems, and I need family around me. You have family. Sophia and Brandon, your new adopted kids. They are Richard's kids. They will side with him if we split. So that is what this was about. She was worried about losing Richard's kids and ending up alone. Now suddenly, I mattered again. That sounds like a you problem, I said. Jake, please. I made mistakes, but I am still your mother. I still love you. You love the idea of not being alone. There is a difference. I closed the door. She stood outside crying for a while before finally leaving. Uncle Greg called that evening. Mom had showed up at his house sobbing about how I had rejected her. He had listened politely, then told her she had created this situation and needed to deal with the consequences. She is claiming you are being cruel and vindictive. I am being honest, I know. And I told her that. She did not want to hear it. Summer came. I worked full-time, saved money, prepared for university. Kevin and I took a road trip to the coast. His family invited me to their 4th of July barbecue. Life was good. Meanwhile, Mom's marriage was imploding. Uncle Greg kept me updated even though I did not ask. Richard had apparently been hiding financial problems. The business was not doing as well as he had claimed, and supporting Sophia and Brandon's expensive lifestyle while paying increased child support was crushing them. They had already cut the house cleaning service and meal delivery stopped going to the country club as often. Sophia was furious about potentially not getting a new car. Brandon's elite soccer camp was cancelled. The cracks were showing in their perfect family. In August, right before I moved to campus, Mom tried one more time. Showed up at my apartment with luggage. I left Richard. She announced I need a place to stay for a while. I stared at her. And you thought you would stay here. You have space. I am your mother. Of course I thought I would stay here. No, Jake. I have nowhere else to go. That is unfortunate. She looked genuinely shocked, like she had expected me to just welcome her in after everything. I made mistakes, but you do not just abandon family when things get hard. You would know, I said. I was trying to make a life with Richard. I was trying to be happy, and I was trying to have a mother. We both failed. She started crying again, but this time it did not move me. I had used up all my sympathy somewhere around junior year when she had missed my championship game because Sophia had a dance recital. What am I supposed to do? She asked. Figure it out. You are an adult. You will be fine. Jake, please. I will make it up to you. I will be better. Just give me another chance. I gave you 3 years of chances. You chose Richard's kids every time. I did not realize what I was doing. Yeah, you did. You just did not care because it was convenient. She stood there looking lost. Finally, she asked, So that is it? You are just done with me? I was done with you the day you sent me to Richard's house and erased me from your life. I am just making it official now. She left. Did not try arguing more. Did not try bargaining. Just got in her car and drove away. Uncle Greg called an hour later. Mom had shown up at his house asking to stay there. He had agreed but told her it was temporary. She is a mess. He said the divorce is going to be nasty. Not my problem. I know, but she is still your mom. Being related does not make her my family. Uncle Greg was quiet. You are right, but for what it is worth, I think this is rock bottom for her. She is finally realizing what she lost. Good. Maybe she will learn something. I moved to campus the next week, started university, made new friends, joined clubs, lived the college life. It was everything I had worked for. Mum tried reaching out occasionally, emails about how sorry she was, how she wanted to rebuild our relationship, how she understood if I needed time. I never responded. The divorce finalized right before Thanksgiving. Mom got basically nothing. Turns out Richard had a prenup and she had signed away most claims to his assets. She got some money but not enough to maintain the lifestyle she had gotten used to. She had to get an apartment, go back to work full-time, start over completely. Meanwhile, Richard kept the house, kept his kids, kept living his life like the last 3 years had not happened. Poetic justice, really. She had sacrificed her relationship with me for Richard's world, and now she had neither. Uncle Greg invited me to Thanksgiving at his house. Said Mum would be there, but I did not have to come if I was not ready. I thought about it for a while, then decided to go not to reconcile, but to show her I had moved on. I showed up with Kevin, who had become basically my brother at this point. Mom was helping Uncle Greg's wife in the kitchen. When she saw me, her face lit up. "Jake, you came. Uncle Greg invited me." The hope died in her eyes. She understood I was not there for her. Dinner was awkward. Mom kept trying to make conversation with me, asking about school and my apartment, and if I needed anything. I gave short answers. Spent most of the meal talking to Uncle Greg and Kevin. After dinner, Mom cornered me in the hallway. "Can we talk, please, about what about us? About fixing this? There is nothing to fix. We are not broken. We are just done. You are my son. We are never done. That is where you are wrong. Being your son is biology. Being your family is choice. And I choose not to." She flinched like I had hit her. "I know I messed up. I know I chose Richard over you, but I am different now. I understand what I lost. You lost it 3 years ago. You are just noticing now because you are alone. That is not true. It is. If you and Richard were still together, you would not be here trying to reconnect. You would still be playing mom to Sophia and Brandon and pretending I do not exist." She did not deny it. Could not deny it. "I want to make things right," she said quietly. "Some things cannot be fixed. You made your choice. Now you get to live with it." I left shortly after. Kevin drove because he could tell I was upset. Not sad, just tired. Tired of having the same conversation. Tired of Mom not understanding that sorry does not undo 3 years of rejection. "You okay?" Kevin asked. "Yeah, I am good." And I was. Mom had burned that bridge, and I had stopped waiting for her to rebuild it. I had Uncle Greg Kevin's family friends at university. I had a life that did not revolve around waiting for someone to remember I mattered. Christmas came and went. Mom sent gifts to my apartment. I donated them unopened. She called on my birthday. I did not answer. She kept trying and I kept refusing. Uncle Greg asked me one day if I would ever forgive her. I do not need to forgive her. I said I just need to move on. That is fair, but forgiveness is sometimes for you, not them. I am not carrying anger. I am just choosing peace. And peace means Mom staying in my past. By sophomore year, Mom had stopped trying so hard. Still sent occasional emails, but they were less desperate, more resigned to our new reality. I heard through Uncle Greg that she was dating again some guy from her work, divorced with no kids. She was being more careful this time, not rushing into anything. Good for her. Genuinely, I hoped she had learned something from the Richard disaster, but I did not need to be part of her learning process. Junior year, I ran into Sophia at a coffee shop near campus. She was a freshman at the same university, probably got in through Richard's connections and money. She recognized me immediately. "Jake." "Hey, we did that awkward small talk thing people do when they share history, but not friendship." She mentioned Richard had remarried already some woman he had met at the country club. Brandon was thriving in private school. Life was good. "Your mom misses you," Sophia said suddenly. "She talks about you sometimes when she visits Richard about how she messed up. That is nice. Do you ever think about reaching out, giving her another chance?" "No." Sophia looked surprised. "She is your mom. She stopped being my mom when she chose you guys over me. No offense, but I do not owe her anything. That is harsh. That is honest. We parted awkwardly. I never ran into her again, which was fine by me. Senior year of college brought job offers and real adult life. I had majored in civil engineering, done well, had multiple companies interested, accepted a position in a city 5 hours away. Good money, good benefits, fresh start. Uncle Greg threw me a graduation party small thing at his house with Kevin's family and a few college friends. Mom asked if she could come. Uncle Greg said it was my call. I thought about it, really thought about it. Part of me wanted to be the bigger person, let her come, show her I had succeeded without her. But another part knew she would try to take credit, try to insert herself back into my life. "No," I told Uncle Greg. "This is my day. I do not want it complicated." He understood. The graduation party was perfect. Kevin's mom cried. Uncle Greg gave a speech about watching me grow up. My college friends roasted me appropriately. It was everything a graduation party should be. Mom texted me that night. "Congratulations on graduating. I am proud of you." I did not respond. I am 21 now. Moved to my new city, started my job. Got an apartment downtown. Kevin visits sometimes. Uncle Greg calls weekly.